It is so good to hear those faith statements read by our young people this morning, isn't it? We all just witnessed God continuing in the covenant that we heard read in Jeremiah. When God said, I will put my law within them. I will write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. God claimed Nicholas and Amara in their baptism. And today, as we watch them affirm that baptism and confirm their faith, it is clear who they are and whose they are. So thank you both. I know from personal experience, it can be nerve-wracking to stand up here and to talk about what you think and feel and believe about God and the church and your faith. It's hard. But the good news is we are free to do so. As we heard in John's Gospel this morning, Jesus promised that when we know the truth of who we are and whose we are free. And that's a freedom that I think far too often we might take for granted. We remember, though, in our Lutheran faith, that we profess that we are saved because of Christ, by grace. And that there is nothing we can do to earn this, and there is nothing we can do to destroy this. Because God's love is bigger than all of our works and all of our mistakes. Sadly, that's a truth that isn't as well known as you all might think. According to the Association of Religion Data Archives, I think I got that right. In 2010, in Sacramento County, the largest Christian denomination was Roman Catholic, but it made up only 16% of Sacramento County. Mainline Protestant, that's Lutheran, Methodist, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, UCC, Nazarene, makes up only 2%. And we ELCA make up only 0.04% of the county. There are other Christian denominations and other religions included in the data, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, but the largest, the vast majority of Sacramento County, with 63%, checked the box saying they were unclaimed. That means that 63% do not know this good news that our confirmands just shared with us. They don't know of a God who has claimed them, of a God who loves them unconditionally and gives them this most amazing grace. They just don't know. And there are reasons for this. I think the church, because it's made up of those of us who are all simultaneously saints and sinners, sometimes we fail. And too often, there have been times when the church has hurt people. And too often, There have been times when the church has bored people. And too often, there have been times when the church has excluded people. And too often, there have been times when the church just simply has not seemed relevant to people. This isn't something that was new in 2010. It was going on 502 years ago, also in Germany, when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther learned that the Catholic Church at the time had been basically extorting people, telling people they needed to buy their way into heaven. And so on October 31st, 1517, Luther went and nailed his 95 reasons why we are saved by grace and not works to the church door in Wittenberg. And the world changed. And the truth became known. And we were free. Again, Jesus was the one who freed us. Don't get me wrong. But that knowledge is where we find freedom. And so, a lot has changed. But some things haven't changed. Regina Banks, who, if you haven't met her yet, is amazing. She is our new director for the Lutheran Office of Public Policy for California and Nevada. And she was sharing a couple weeks ago at our Professional Leaders Conference that when she had just been working a few months for the church, she went to a gathering with some of her former colleagues. Most of them were lobbyists at the Capitol. And when they found out that she was working for a church, they all sort of distanced themselves from her. Like she forgot to wear deodorant. They looked at her like she had the plague. And when she finally got one of her friends aside and said, "What's going on?" he said, "Well, how could you do that? How could you work for a church? It's like you've betrayed us." Like he thought she'd gone to the dark side. Because you see, too often, those who are unclaimed see the church represented by people who appear to be hateful and to be full of fire and brimstone and judgment and condemnation. And so Regina said, "I hear you. But let me tell you about this church that I work for. Let me tell you about the ELCA. Let me tell you about their wonderful social statements and how they strive to live out their baptismal promise to share the good news in word and action, to care for others and all of God's creation, to work for justice and peace. Let me tell you about how this church is a reconciling in Christ synod and that it is a sanctuary church and what those things mean. Let me tell you about these people who worship a God who they believe came to be one of us and who loves us just as we are." And when she finished, her friend said, "I didn't know churches like that existed. Where can I find one?" You know, I get a similar reaction from those cardstock welcome cards in your pews. It's not unusual for someone to be a first-time visitor and to pick it up and read it and to come to me after, sometimes after funerals, that's how they get in here. And they ask me, do you all really mean what this says? Really? Because a church who really, truly does welcome NASCAR dads and soccer moms and gay and straight and overly zealous Marge Simpson fans is what so many who are unclaimed are hungry for. A church who has God's law written on our hearts, that commandment that Jesus gave us, to love one another always, no matter what, is a refuge in this aching world. So we, as a part of the church, as a congregation, as a part of this 0.04% in the county, are always growing. You can hear it in their faith statements. We're always stretching out of our comfort zones. We're always made new. We're always reforming to be louder truth tellers. We may be small, but we are mighty. Because as the psalmist writes, God is our strength and our refuge. God is our God. And so we truth tellers, we who know this truth, have been called, just as Martin Luther was so many years ago, to be a sanctuary, to be a safe place, to be a home to all of God's people, to live our lives of evidence of this truth, so others who otherwise may be unclaimed can find that they are claimed and can learn the truth and find freedom in who they are and whose they are. This Reformation Sunday, let us give thanks for the good news that changes us, that emboldens us, that sends us out to be loud, bold truth tellers, so that others may hear of this exciting freedom and know the truth of whose they are and that they have been claimed. Amen.